words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be ever mindful of thee, O Lord, my strength and my salvation. Amen. Amen. Please be seated. You know, I have officially entered the old fart stage of life. I have gone with my daughter to the grocery store, and I have stood at the checkout line and asked her with a straight face, who is Kim Kardashian? And she rolls her eyes at me. Now, I used to do that to my father 30 years ago, and my daughter's now doing it to me. We're going through the grocery store. We're working on her building healthy eating habits, and it takes about an hour, hour and a half, because she reads every label and points out to me that corn syrup is Satan's gift to the world. But we were in the tomato section, Italian sauces and foods and noodles and things like that. And we're looking along, and I said, "Oh, your mother and I saw this movie last night. Oh, Cool Hand Luke, Paul Newman, he's just you really should see this." She said, who are you talking about? I said, "The guy right here." "You mean the guy who sells spaghetti and popcorn?" My daughter has no clue that Paul Newman is an actor. He is a food magnate for her generation. Now, this is mildly amusing, but at the same time, it sort of speaks to a disconnect between cultures and common memories and thoughts and feelings. So the things that resonate with me culturally don't always resonate with my children. Last week, we had a bit of change on our Sunday breakfast forum. For the weeks before, we did such uplifting and happy talks and discussions as abortion, the clergy's sexual abuse crisis, gun control. So I thought, if I wanted to have anybody by the end of the year, let's do something light and fluffy. So last week, we did Hollywood and the movies. And what we did is we took two films that are not religious films. What's a religious film? It's not something you saw in Sunday school, but something like, I don't know, the Ten Commandments, or the Song of Bernadette, something that is advertised, marketed, presented as something that is religious and good for you. Well, when you go to a film like that, you know what you're going to get. And you're either ready for it or you're not. We didn't look at that. We looked at secular films that don't use the word God, but preach ethics and morals. And we looked at two in particular, both from 1942, Casablanca, and now Voyager. Now, I have to say that I chose those two for the purposes of alliteration. Bogey, Betty, and the Bible was what I wanted to do. But I used those films, and we looked at 4 scenes in those movies to show how a common religious culture, American Christianity, not Protestant, not Catholic, not this, not that, but a common moral code was being taught in these films without being overtly preachy. And how America, in many ways, was shaped by a common culture and core that reached across classes and colors and peoples and races and so on and so forth. And after the class, people said, this was really fun. And it was suggested I do a Lenten series. Maybe, one night a week, or maybe once every other week, a movie and then a discussion of the religious implications and significance of a film that we wouldn't normally consider a religious film. Now, I like that sort of thing, and so I started thinking about working. First, I had to find which nights were free, because this is the busy time of year. I can't conflict with Mahjong, or I get nobody. But I put together, and then I started thinking of the films, and I thought, no, that's a little too religious, but that's, trying to pick. And then and going through my head and my mind and my thinking, what would work? We've got 7 weeks of Lent, 7 films. And one of the films that hit me quickly was South Pacific. And I thought, it's 3 hours long. Nobody's going to sit for 3 hours in the parish hall to watch a movie. But the theme of South Pacific as I think about it, as that movie begins to, the reels begin to spin in my head, isn't that teaching a Christian message? South Pacific came out on Broadway in 1949. It was based on a book, The Tales of the South Pacific, by Michener. I forget his first name. James Michener. You've heard this sermon, haven't you? Came out in 48 as a musical with Richard Rodgers writing the lyrics and Oscar Hammerstein II doing the music. And it was a Broadway smash. And it was the most popular musical of that year and for many years to come, and it went on the road. But South Pacific was not well received in all places. The Georgia legislature attempted to ban the public showing of the play South Pacific. Why? Because it preached miscegenation. A young Marine from Philadelphia, Lieutenant Cable, falls in love with a Tonkinese woman. We would now say Vietnamese woman. And in 1949 in Georgia, as well as in Florida and in many southern states, it was against the law to marry someone of a different race. And it didn't work, and the movie and the film and the play was shown, and it was a smash success and hit. But I thought, man, what a Christian message of tolerance and love and being open. And then the rest of the movie begins to play, and I thought, oh, I can't go down this road. Because Lieutenant Cable has a song that is profoundly un-Christian. And the problem is, it's one of the better songs, so it's one of the ones you remember. Let me give you a bit of a hint. Lieutenant Cable is from the main line of Philadelphia, so far away. Philadelphia, PA, Princeton, NJ. He's a Princeton man. He's a member of America's upper middle classes from the staid, leafy suburbs of, it's actually the place where I grew up, in Bryn Mawr. I know these people, they're my people. And in fact, I can remember my mother telling me, never date a Jewish girl, because you might marry her. I see some heads nodding in the congregation. And he falls in love with a Vietnamese girl, and he finds that this is not universally accepted amongst his peers. And he sings a song that opens with this line, you have to be taught to hate and fear. You've got to be taught from year to year. It's got to be drummed in your dear little ear. You've got to be carefully taught. This is the song Lieutenant Cable, you can remember the film, it's played by John Carr, sings as he protests against the bigotry and prejudices of the people around him. But the problem is that this is profoundly un-Christian, because the Christian church believes that you don't have to be taught to hate. You've got to be taught to love. The natural state is hate. Ever since the fall of Adam and Eve from paradise, we are broken, flawed, failed human beings. Adolf Hitler is natural. The saints are not. Lieutenant Cable grew up in the wealth and pride and joy of a suburb that accepted him wherever he was because he's a man of power and consequences. Parents were. Yet he didn't know the real world, protected as he was by class and color and wealth. The real world is nasty. The real world is prejudiced. People, the Bible tells us again and again, our hearts are broken. And it is the message of Jesus Christ and Christ alone that allows us to overcome the hatred that is in our hearts for people. I've been fortunate in my ministry to have been able to serve in different parts of the world. I've ministered in South Africa. You want to talk about people who hate each other? I've visited Rwanda. I can't tell the difference between Tutsis and Hutus. But they can. And given enough encouragement, they'll kill each other at the drop of a hat. I visited a friend in Belfast. And I can't tell the difference between an Irish, Protestant and an Irish Catholic. They can. They're all short people with red hair to me. The natural state of people is hatred of cruelty and violence. And when Jesus Christ says, love your enemies, do not return evil with evil. If someone steals your coat, give them your shirt. If someone strikes you on the cheek, give them the other one. He's not saying be a patsy. He's not saying be a doormat till anybody comes along. He's saying be a man. And stand for what is deeper and truer and stronger. That other person is a person created by God and loved by God just as you are. And because God loves you, you must turn around and love your neighbor as yourself. This is profoundly unnatural. It's so much easier, so much quicker, so much more enjoyable to hate people. How many of you were ever 5 or 6 or 7-year-old little boys? You will soon experience this with Tyson. You see the little boys. Tyson's 4. You got a year. People think, oh, children, they're unspoiled. They're full of the love and beauty of God. Wait till you see 5-year-olds on the playground. Do you think tribalism has to be taught? You think tribes have to be learned? Growing up as I did in the Philadelphia suburbs, we had a common school bus, and the bus went to 3 schools. Episcopal Academy, guess where I went? Saint, I think it was Aloysius, guess who they were? Catholic boys, and Hebrew Academy. We had the religious school. It was one bus from my neighborhood that went and picked up the kids for the private schools. And if you don't believe in tribalism, look at 1st and 2nd and 3rd graders of Jews not sitting with Catholics who were looking down their noses at Protestants. This didn't have to be taught. This is who we were. Broken, flawed human beings. We didn't have to have it drummed in our little ears year after year to hate people. It came naturally. What we have to be taught, what has to be drummed in our little ear, is to love your neighbor. I don't want to do that a lot of the time. I don't want to be like that. I want my own. I want to win. I want to be shown to be right. I want. Did Christ want to die on a cross? Did Christ stand up and die for my sins so that I could be selfish and small and petty-minded and say the sum of all being is me and people like me? No, he did not. Christ came for all men, all women. And as soon as you inject race and class and all the attributes that we like to divide people into, you are going against the clear teaching of Christ to love your neighbor, love your enemy, as you would be loved. Friends, this is what needs to be taught year after year. This is not natural. The unique circumstances, the setting of this passage of Luke's gospel is Jesus is talking to the disciples, and he's telling them how they must live. How they must be in this world if they are truly going to be his disciples. They're going to be spat upon, they're going to be kicked, they're going to be beaten, they're going to be robbed. What does that mean? What should they do? Should they all grow funny beards, move to central Pennsylvania, become Amish people? Or should they be in the world, sharing the good news of what Christ is offering to anyone who will accept him, and taking the crap that people will pour on them? This is what Jesus is asking of his disciples, and this is what is asked of us. Now, this doesn't mean, I'm not preaching that we should all be pacifists and allow evil people to do evil things. We have a duty to protect those whom we have a responsibility to care for. We have a duty to care for others. But friends, we need to focus on the key point that Jesus is making here. He is to treat the stranger, someone from outside your tribe, someone with a funny accent, who may be a different color, who may wear funny clothes, who may have a funny accent, to treat them with the dignity and respect that you want them to treat you with. And why? Because they are made in the image of God just as you are. This is what Christ is teaching his disciples. And far from being... When I was in college, I really didn't have much to do with the Christian youth groups because, frankly, I thought they were just the losers. They weren't strong and vibrant and powerful and going to go places and do things. And I just didn't know what Jesus was talking about. Because the harder path is the path of Christ. Each of us will be asked in our lifetime, do you love me? Jesus, do you love Jesus? And you will, at a certain point, have to take up a cross, your cross, and follow him. It's going to be different for each of us. It's going to be lived out and worked out in different ways and in different times and in different places. But being a Christian means subordinating your will, your desires, your needs, your wants, for the greater good, as Jesus Christ did. Now, what do you think has to be taught? You think you've got to be taught to hate? Or do you think you have to be taught to love? And because the movie was 3 hours, I'm not going to show it. But love. We have to love, and we have to be taught that again and again and again. Because this is not going to be easy. It's not natural. It's not the way of the world. Amen.